What is up, everyone? Welcome to Mechs on Deck. We are back with a good friend, an old friend, one of our longest standing friends of the channel, one of our first guests, and a guy who helped us get started, Mr. ManOfInterests. How you doing?
Howdy, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on once again. Looks like you guys have been growing, been doing quite well. So I'm happy to be back on. How have you guys been?
Good, man. Good. What about you, Dave?
A little tired today. A little tired, but that's lack of sleep. It happens, but no, I'm good. I'm happy to have. I'll tell my Huey stories later.
Whoa, Huey stories. Okay,
but
There's multiple.
yeah, exactly. Well, but in this climate that we're in, Huey's one of our IRL friends. We have met and spent quite a bit of time in person with. So glad to have you on. I'm actually looking up to see which episode we had you on, because you were like one of the first 3 or 4 people we had on the show
Back in the straight to YouTube days before we even streamed.
I think so. Okay, so the episode, this was the straight to YouTube episode, was released May 14th of 2019, so 2 years and 2 days, or 5 days ago.
Where does the time go? Wow.
Lots of things have changed.
We were young once.
We were young once. Yeah, I'll post a link to this video.
Man, it's crazy to think like you think about how long ago that was, and you think about where the community was at in May of 2018, and that was like when I remember distinctly when you were like the first person talking about, is MOQ dead? Have we reached the end of MOQ? And that was like right around when that first started, and now it's been like 2 years of just MOQ just basically not mattering for most group buys.
Well, it did matter for
GMK Oasis.
and what was that keyboard? Sorry, Blind Assassin. He just canceled it.
Yeah, the Delta Blade.
Delta Blade.
Delta Blade, yeah.
One old, one new. We talked about that a lot last night. Before we get into it, quick shout out to our awesome sponsors and partners. Dutch Master, thank you for the raid of 66 people. So Dutch Master, hope you had a good stream. OmniType, Canon Keys, Kinetic Labs, and Project Keyboards, as well as Type Beast, Zap Cables, 3D Keys, and Smith and Rune. We'll hear more from them later. But yeah, we talked about it a good bit last night where we never quite said has the bubble popped. I don't think the bubble's popped, but we're starting to see less. We're seeing less numbers. The ship. There's now the boards for hype, and apologies to Smith and Rune because I never actually mentioned the 165 or the 180 buys. But the hype boards are there. The boards that are sadly seen as easily flippable boards, even though most people actually just want to type on them, are there. We're seeing less and less. If it's not a hype board, it's probably going to start underperforming because long group buys and delays, and it's been a year, and people are starting to get like, do I really want to do this again? Like, do I want to wait another year for something? I just got the 7V and that was 14 months. Do I want to wait another year for a keyboard when, and fucking 7V, man, they even said a year. Like, they gave themselves a year.
Yeah.
It's strange times, but where in the world is Man of Interest? You have been absent for a little bit. You've been beneath the shadows.
Yeah. I've been lurking. I've been chilling, relaxing, chilling like a villain, as I say. Yeah, I've just been doing IRL work. I've just been focusing on other hobbies of late. I basically took a little like keyboard content sabbatical in a way and just kind of decided to lay low and focus on mental health, physical health, and just get my whole bearings in life, because for me ultimately this is a hobby, and there are more important things in life than hobbies from time to time, right? As much as I love keyboards. So yeah, I've just kind of been laying low, but I will be doing, obviously, like this show, a return to content. Otherwise, I wouldn't have just hopped on, obviously. But
you
no,
are a man of interests with an S at the end. It's not just a man of one singular interest.
For anyone curious, in particular, I've just been just riding my motorcycle like literally every weekend and just motorcycling all the time now. That's mostly what I've been doing. From that, apart from just like normal IRL work and stuff like that, which has been good, and just getting into like nature photography stuff and moto camping. But no, keyboard content to resume soon. I have 2 reviews. One of them should be out later this week, and the other one will be out next week. Aside from that, I think other than that, the only thing I've done in the last 3 months has been the HHKB event, which I was the MC for, that PFU Fujitsu's US branch hosted, that they had me MC for, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if anyone had a chance to check that out.
Yeah, I was able to catch a little bit of it. So it's really cool. I know you've been heavy on the HHKB train. Some might say a traitor to mechanical keyboards if you will. That person being me, but but no, guys, if you don't know who Man of Interest is, he's kind of one of the few godfathers of the keyboard hobby. He is one of the original members of Top Clack, and if you were around in the hobby in 2017, 2018, that's most likely where you knew him, back when there were less streamers on my hand in number than now. There are probably at least more streamers live currently than there were in total back in 2017, 2018 in the keyboard hobby. So he has popularized many things. He obviously helped get the Holy Pandas up and running and up into the atmosphere of the world. He has collaborated quite a bit and given lots of great reviews. Still the greatest review video. Go look it up. I think it's on the Top Clack channel of SA Max Key Lime. It is probably the funniest, the hardest I've laughed at a keyboard video.
The clip when you're putting tape on the stem of keycaps to get them to stay, like, that's like one of my favorite clips. I think it's the most viewed clip on the Top Clack channel, and it's just you literally just like flick a key and the keycap just bloop, pops off.
So and it's always fun. We have gotten, you've also been integral in getting the NorCal meetup as popular as it is. So welcome back to the show. We are going to do a fast 4 because yours have maybe changed in the last 2 years and 5 days. And for those who don't know, he of course, if you have exclamation point guest, he does have a Twitch channel. He streams. I assume the streaming is going to pick back up.
Yep.
Awesome.
And does some very unique and awesome content. The last time we were on, he hosted a game show that pitted us versus the losers that are Top Clack because they lost. So, what is your
well, the bloodbath?
That was Eric.
It was fun
doing all of the work and me just chilling. But what are your top 4 favorite switches?
The top 4 favorite switches would have to be. Let me go in no particular order and then try to order them. So in no particular order, they'd have to be Topra, specifically 55 grams. Holy Pandas, Brown Alps, and it's kind of a hard one.
The 4th is always the hardest.
See. Obviously, the most marketable answer would be stating a linear, because everyone wants me to say a linear.
It's true.
But is that really one of my? Would it be the top 4? No. Actually, probably no. It's probably. I mean, it's actually the 4th one is the hardest.
Yeah,
4th one is the hardest
because it's all of the rest.
Because there's 2. If I could do up to 5, I could get the last 2, no problem. It's just which of these last 2 is the 4th. Ooh. I will have to go with inks. Black inks.
Inks.
So
what's
you went to the
what's
dark
the
side.
honorable mention?
The honorable mention is Beam Spring.
Okay.
I was gonna say which one's easier to build with because I figured one of them was out there. So I
One of them
is
with.
very easy to build with.
The other one will start at 4 digits if you'd like to buy one.
The other one is you don't necessarily build them. So
You acquire the entirety of them.
do you still have that Gigantor like desk filling keyboard?
I do. I still have the huge giant Beam Spring. It still has that giant fat 5-volt solenoid that shakes the whole case every time I type on it. Absolutely A+. I was thinking of selling it a few months back. I actually had a buyer lined up. Funny enough, the buyer was like the buyer. I'm not gonna say who it is, but I will give a hint that will make sure everyone knows who it is. The buyer the interested buyer, prospective buyer, is the most popular streamer in the keyboard community. And he was willing to offer like market price of 4 digits for it. But at the last moment, I'm like, no, I can't get rid of it.
Gotta keep it. Gotta keep it.
Plus, I got it for 3 digits.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's just an investment at this point. Just an investment at this point, you know.
Oh, what a horrible keyword mentality that so many people are getting in. Oh, I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but
Oh, we definitely can.
We'll get into some spice.
But so my top 4 were Topra 55 gram, Brown Alps, Inks, and I guess the 4th one doesn't matter because I already forgot what it was.
You said Holy Pandas.
Holy Pandas, there we go. The one I named. Duh. Okay, if I had to list them 1 through 4, 1 Topra 55 gram, 2 Inks, 3 Holy Pandas, 4 Brown Alps.
Interesting. Weird to think that the number 2 is the one that you were trying to. Was it going to make the cut? I would have expected the Inks to be on the end, you know, bringing up the rear. But hey,
Inks are solid though.
Inks are solid, and they'll work in almost every situation, and that's why they're just so good. They're so versatile.
And it's not a switch. I feel like it's not a switch that people are talking about anymore as much because of the rise of the JWK linear. But
yeah,
which
is fine.
Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Next up will be your top 4 favorite keycap sets.
Oh man, top 4 favorite keycap sets. This is my Topra my Topra Just Systems High Pro set. Obviously, that's going to be number 1. How boring am I? That's what I think. I like a lot of boring sets. People who know me know that. How boring am I actually? I'm trying to think of my boards, my favorite quote unquote favorite boards right now. What sets they have on them? GMK Serica, definitely up there.
I'd say that's not boring. That's colorful.
That's probably my most exciting set. Otherwise, it'd be like GMK Beige It's like, it sounds so boring to list it as one of my favorites, but it's a set I always put on a board at some point at another, so I feel I have to put it as one of my favorites because it's so utilitarian. That is the boring answer. Let's see. Do I have another exciting answer? I'm trying to see my boards, but it's kind of hard to see past my monitor where my boards are.
You were big on what was it? Not why am I going completely Red Samurai? You used to be huge on Red Samurai.
I used to be huge on Red Samurai. I actually haven't used Red Samurai in 3-4 months. It's definitely fallen quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, Red Samurai was my set of the year in 2019, I believe. Fourth set. Hold on. Oh, Olivia. Easy.
There it is.
Yeah, I was like, I was waiting for it. I was like, when is the Olivia or an Olive gonna come in? So.
And Neb did nail it at the same time you said it.
I am actually using right now Serica. So
there
it is. There it is. What about your top 4 favorite keyboards?
Top 4 favorite keyboards. Okay, so it would be my Jur 80. I don't have it yet, but I'm already gonna call it my Heavy Grail when I get it. Just gonna call it out. So don't mess it up, Ryan, please. I've already given you this glowing endorsement before I received the board. My Alice. It's an actual Alice, not one of the millions of clones. And my Jane V2, which, funny enough, I sold my CE, my Jane V2 CE, because I liked my Jane V2 more, which is reverse because most people value the CE way higher than they do the V2.
Interesting.
You're a man who knows what he wants. I completely forgot about the Jura 80.
Yeah, you built one, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah, it's man, that was a day because I remember that was the same day my wife sliced her arm open.
Yeah, I remember
like
that.
3 hours before.
Yeah,
she was like, "I'm going to the hospital," and I was like, "Okay."
I remember that stream because it was a win keyless Jur 80 and you
And I
soldered
put, oh man, the amount of
standard bottom.
my head was just like
Out,
not
yeah.
not in the, because not only did I do that, but it's got the LEDs at the top, right? It's got the optional like LED old school panel, and I also put the 3 switches there too. And I just, every time I was like, all right, I think I'm done. I was like, God damn. So, and it being plateless and it was like red inks. I was like, I want to like this board, but everything about this board is nothing that I like. So,
Absolutely. Well, last but not least, the one that has nothing to do with keyboards. Top 4 favorite foods.
Top 4 favorite foods. Wow. What a question. Favorite foods. Can it just be like food categories? Because
Yeah.
like if I say
Yeah.
burgers, burgers are one of my favorite foods. But obviously there's like an infinite combination of what can constitute a burger. So if that's the case, burgers, tacos, pizzas. I feel like I should even it out with something healthier. But no, that's a lie. Healthy food
pizza's
is
a
my favorite.
vegetable.
Yeah,
It's-
pizza,
yeah,
it's got
yeah.
vegetables on it. Burgers
That's
can
true.
contain vegetables. Tacos are topped with vegetables. You're somewhat healthy.
That's very true. Very true. Okay, 4th favorite food. I like how quickly I rattled those 3 off too.
It's easy to get 3. It's the 4th one's always tough.
I want to say some kind of candy, but I'm kind of think because I like no lie in my Amazon save for later cart have about $100 worth of candy. I just want to
Good
order.
Lord. Are you a chocolate guy or like a
no, I'm a
hard
sugar,
candy guy?
so no, I could like neither, like sour gummies. So like most of my cart is like Swedish Fish, sour gummy worms, Sour Patch Kids, especially since you can get like a 2 pound of just one flavor of Sour Patch Kids now.
Yeah.
Really?
And you can even do like the make your own bag.
Yeah, you can just skip out the shit flavors. Okay, like
Wow.
yellow Sour Patch Kids, get out of my face.
Get 'em out.
I don't get them out. Get them out. If I can say just sugary candy, but I think that's too broad. That's like way too broad because there's so many kinds
sour.
of
I think sour candies.
Sour candies. Okay, I would say sour
Yeah.
candies then would
You
be
can
up
send
there.
it with that.
I love sour candies.
Can we make an honorable mention of energy drinks in there? Because I feel like every time I've literally ever seen you on stream, you have some sort of an energy drink.
Yeah, it's legitimately a bad habit. But yes, this is honorable mention would definitely be energy drinks.
There it is. So, like I said, guys, earlier, Huey, he is one of the godfathers of keyboard streaming. You've been around for a hot minute. I tell this story. I'm pretty sure every time I have either you or Quakems on, that I used to walk. I've been walking a bunch recently as well, but I used to walk a bunch, and I would listen to all the old Topcast podcasts or Top Clack podcasts and streams. And it's funny because back then, whenever you first get into a hobby and then you see like, oh, these people are streaming, like those are like the celebrities, right? They're the ones that are doing it every single week and week in and week out. And it was always like, oh man, these guys are like untouchable. Like wouldn't it be cool to like be in a hobby where you create content on the level that these guys do? And then of course now we create content. Now we're here. So but it was always funny because the very was I asked you to put GMK camping on your TX60, your Champagne TX60, because I wanted to see. I don't know if you remember. If you're about to whip it out,
Oh wait, no, it's not camping. It's a green set, but not.
It's
camping.
A green set. I think you even said I'm going to put this set back on it. But yeah, and I remember wanting you, and you're like, yeah, dude, fuck it. Like, sure, of course. And I remember being like, that's so cool that I can reach out and just like talk to this dude. And it felt like the hobby was grounded. And I always like the fact that you can always kind of like, I feel like we've lost a little bit of that, mainly because people are just busy. Like it used to be like people in their downtime. Now it's like people's full-time jobs. And I'm not trying to like make a stab at Nathan. He's a busy guy. It's harder if Nathan spent all of his time answering personal DMs, he wouldn't have time to make anything because he's just got so many, he would have so many people asking him questions left and right. But it always felt very grounded. We'll talk about the kind of evolution of the hobby, but I will always remember I was like, it was so cool that I'm this nobody that just asked him to do something and he did it. And I was like, that kind of how I've always kind of handled the keyboard hobby in general is like, just be nice, just be courteous. If someone asks you to do something and it really is not going to take that much time or effort, just fucking do it. So but yeah, you've of course you left Top Clock to do your own thing, and then you started doing some of your own content. You have the Keyboard Weekly show. It's a great YouTube series that kind of does your best to include everything, but obviously with the 900,000 things that are getting announced every single day, I imagine has become a little bit more difficult, but you also have some game shows and some really cool ideas. So what has kind of inspired you to take this drastic change of the usual like talk show or keyboard build stream?
It kind of, harkens back to what you said earlier in the stream, which is like there's only so far you can get doing build streams over
Yep.
and over, right? There's most content creators in our space just start with doing build streams because you got a keyboard to build, you can do it. You can find clients like, hey, can I build your keyboard for free? I'll just put it on stream, or for a cheap price because tons of people are looking for builders nowadays. So it started from like, well, I know, like, as a person, I am better scripted than unscripted. Some people are better at improv, right? And some people are better at reading lines. And I'm just a person who's better at, scripting and figuring things out. So I knew, like, if I wanted to, stay relevant or just, do the best content I could do, I would have to change the kind of content because I won't get my full potential out doing a build stream. That's how I always felt. And that's why I started doing less build streams. I'm like, okay, what other content could I do? What's people not really doing? And there were at the time, like JVY, whatever his thing is, the 4 letters, the guy who does keyboard videos.
JYMV, I think.
Yeah, I always mess up the order of those letters. JYMV. There's him. There's a few other people who did like pretty consistent keyboard content, and I thought, okay, well, that's kind of closer to the thing that I think I'll be better at. Writing, scripting, shooting my own videos and whatnot. And I kind of just started with that, and I just kind of thought, well, let's just do something no one else has done. Look, can I take this small niche that's supposed to be so specialized, so just focused on one thing, the keyboard on your desk, and could I take all the elements that make this keyboard and talk about each element in a unique way? And that's kind of how I started thinking about things like the cool board, things about like Key Quiz, and all these other shows and ideas that I have, because I could just sit and just have a lecture series, Huey 101 and mechanical keyboards, right? Mechanical keyboards 101 with Huey, and here's a keycap is a piece of plastic that goes on top of your switches. Your switch has 4 parts.
When's the next Witch Switch episode coming
Right.
out?
So that's interesting. You bring that up, right? So that's how a lot of these other shows started, and that kind of created conflicts with how I view content. So you brought up which I haven't done in quite a while, and the reason I haven't done it in quite a while is there's definitely a group of people who want me to keep doing which switch. But from all the metrics and statistics I have, that's like the absolute smallest group of people. Because every time I've done a stream, done any kind of content where I have like force curve graphs, people don't actually care about force curve graphs. People say they care about force curve graphs. Yeah, I'm just gonna call out everyone right now, right? Most of you guys don't care about force curve graphs. You guys care that they exist, right? But you guys don't actually, like, most people don't really read them how they should be read, so it doesn't matter anyway. So I'm thinking, well, if barely anyone cares about force curve graphs other than me, should I still do them? And that was, before I took my hiatus. Now that I'm coming back, yeah, I'm probably going to, because at this point I'm starting to care less and less about what other people are doing and more, just focusing what makes me happy, right? And doing stuff like which probably will make me happy. So ultimately I will be, do a lot of stuff like that. And ultimately I know which is not going to be a big hit. No one's actually going to care to watch 5 minutes of me reviewing individual components of a Switch when they can take 2 minutes to read a Theremin Goat review, right?
Yeah.
They'll spend 2 minutes, they'll read that Theremin Goat review. Even if you put my video at 2 times speed, which you wouldn't understand me because I already speak annoyingly fast-ish, and it would still be longer than it'd take to read a Theremin Goat article, which gets the point across. It's real. They're typically pretty good in what they need to accomplish, but I'm gonna do it because it makes me happy.
But
That's why, like.
I do like how you're. I feel like, and I've told Dave this multiple times about how, like, I feel like you have some of the best, like, content ideas in the community of, like, the way you have the shows. This Week in Keyboards was, like, fantastic. Well, like you're just saying, clear, concise, to the point. Key quiz was a lot of fun this week, or sorry, not this week. I just said that one. The cool board was a really cool idea, and if you guys in chat haven't watched any of those episodes, even though it may be talking about boards you've never seen or never heard of, it's cool banter between Huey and the guests. We're on there for a couple episodes, and then as well as like Apiary are on there. It's just all awesome content, and even with what you did most recently before your hiatus, Keyboards Tonight, was a really cool, very entertainment based rather than just. It's like the bridge between a Twitch stream and a YouTube video, of giving you that entertainment of a YouTube video that you get, but also having the ability, the balance to connect with a chat and with your viewers and have them that little bit of interaction that kind of boosts the brain a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, those. So if anyone does go back and watch like things like the cool board, like for the cool board, one of the big things that was probably one of my personal favorite shows to host and put on, because I actually thought of the cool board. The way I think about it isn't the way people interpret it consciously, and I think that's why it works. For me, the cool board is actually a History Channel show. Because for every item I bring on, half the show, if you actually break it down, isn't really me arguing about how cool or uncool. It's like, this released in this year on this month. This group buy took this long. This was the group buy runner. Their design philosophies behind this keyboard was this. And then people start forming their ideas of how cool it is, also based on the history of whatever I'm presenting. And I always thought of it as like, I'm just going to present these items as history, as like facts of history, and then the chat will just hash it out. Will hash out with me on how cool it is or uncool it is.
Absolutely,
but
it's always a lot.
I think a lot of it actually worked, because a lot of the history would influence some people on how cool they thought something was, right? If you thought an item was really cool, but then you learned that it had a really shitty group buy, that for a lot of people actually dampen their view on the board, which brings up the moral question a lot of people talk about on that show was, should it dampen how you view a keyboard? Mm-hmm. And that's just like that's a personal thing. And because it's a personal thing, people can relate to it because they have their own opinions on it. And that was kind of like, that's why that show, from my opinion, works so well. It acted as like a socially acceptable way to vent how much you hate or love something.
Well, it's a conversation facilitator, right? And you get to be opinionated about it. And that's why, like, I've tried it. Jay's done it before. A lot of other people, like a keyboard rating system where you're like, oh, well, I'll try and make every keyboard fit into this number. I
doesn't work.
think it never works. I think switches you can kind of put them in a box a little bit because there's just a couple things that you have to meet, but keyboards it's so hard because something like sound, right? Well, what if it's the best feeling keyboard you've ever felt, but it sounds like shit? Well, then it's now going to, if it gets a low enough sound score. What if it's a really boring keyboard, like the Clippa, boring keyboard, but it feels great and it sounds great. But if that's part of your, in design wise, there's nothing really jumping out design wise. It's a rectangle with some posts that you screw into. Like that's not a stab at Mechanist, but like it's not the most exciting keyboard in the world, but it's a great and solid keyboard, and everyone I know that has one really, really likes it. But then again, that kind of gets knocked down. Like, and well, okay, it's hard to kind of put these things into a box. So that's Cool Board kind of allows you. It's like, well, how cool it is, and that kind of
how cool something is. You put totally subjective.
Yeah, it's all subjective, but you put all these things into it. And you're able to kind of like, okay, this is where I would rate it. This is where I would like number it because, certain boards are better at certain things. And that's just a fact that, you're probably going to be a little bit more productive on like a full size keyboard because you have way more keys than like a 40. Fight me, 40s users.
Yeah. And then you have random stands for boards that are just like really good, really bad, like Apiary with the Exent, where she's like, it shouldn't be literally at the bottom. It shouldn't be in the crap tier boards. And she's like, I want it to be cool. And it's like, listen, it's not cool. It's not. Cool. Had cool people working on it. Cool people involved. Board, not so much.
Isn't Originative bringing the Exent back for $690?
Are they really?
I'm pretty sure they teased it on their Instagram.
That board is not worth it. I mean, what? Metal prices are high, so I get it, but 600.
No. I'm pretty sure it's old stock.
Is it really?
I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know because I don't know who actually also has the rights to make more of those, right? Because so many people were involved.
For those who don't know, it was like Rama and TGR, like a lot of those. There's a lot of cooks in that kitchen, trying to make that thing a thing.
People were talking about it on someone. I only figured it out because learned about it because someone posted it on Keep Talk, and I was like, wow, are they really? I guess this is like a good time because people just want new boards and people have forgotten the extent of the Exents group buy. Like, who in chat actually knows about the Exent, huh? I'm gonna call it your chat. How many of you guys actually know about the Exent, huh?
Well, we've got Neb and J Shuff and Geo, so there's at least three.
Some of the old guard is here. Raises hand.
But dude, that would be funny if it is old stock because that reminds me of when Originative like just randomly. Do you remember when they found like a bunch of Norbatouch and Novatouch TKLs? And they were just randomly selling them for like $800, and they're like, "Don't ask where we got these. We've just found them." And it's like
they've always had them. They know they hold on to stuff. They have like BSP they're holding on to still, like OG BSP.
Mm-hmm. Didn't they have cracking issues? I don't even know. I mean, I know
the Exent,
the problems that the Exent has. I know that it's functionally not like. I remember Eric even was like, because Eric got to build one. And I remember he was excited. He was like, oh, "This is gonna be cool. I get to build one. Like this is just unique, and I've always wanted to build one." And then like, we usually most of the time after a build stream, like because we build streams are separate, we'll talk to each other for like 2 minutes. Oh, how's the board? Yeah. And I just remember he was like, "Dude, this thing sucks." He's like, "I'm not a fan of this." I was like, "I'm glad I don't own one of these."
Yeah, I built one. It was not a fun build experience. I typed on it too. To be fair, my client for that board chose like Zeal Silent Tactiles, whatever they're called. Xylence, which also wasn't a great choice for that board.
The fart switch, dude.
Yeah.
I had to build the Evolve, right? The very unique and very cool upcoming board. It was like, all right, sweet, the evolve, and then it was like, here's Xylence. God, it's like, why?
Why do this? Yeah.
You know,
But, people like it.
back to the original topic though on the cool board. I think you guys actually just made me realize right now another reason people kind of liked it. You guys kind of talked about it on like its subjectiveness, because I think it allowed at least most people to win even in a loss. Like, for example, you know, people always argue like this belongs in cool, right? And then I always go like, but how cool? Is it cooler than this thing that's in the cool category, or is it cooler than this thing in the cool category, right? And most people would end up, you know, probably thinking, oh, it should have been cooler than that, but it's still cool. So I think most people end up getting their affirmation. I think most people think most things are usually relatively cool. Like, it was a standard bell curve, right?
Mhm.
Most things were meh or cool, with, you know, only fringe things being wow or yikes.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a few yikes that were very deserved. And it's one of those things when you're looking at it and you go in with the mindset of thinking like, man, this could ride the line of yikes, and then you see what else is out there and you start to think about the like atrocities that are on the left side of that sheet, and you're like, nope, it's getting closer to meh. It's getting closer to meh.
You know what? I think it did okay, relatively.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I think what's also fun is like the cool board literally is the definition of like confirmation bias. like
Confirmation bias,
if you
the
could
show.
wrap up the cool board, it's confirmation bias. It's like, I want to feel like I spent my money wisely, and people are like, fuck you, no you didn't.
No, you didn't.
And you're like, no, I promise.
Your TX65, that's just a meh. That's not
Yeah.
even a cool.
Dude, man, I remember talking to this Dutch master actually who rated us, and he has like a new TX60. And I talked to him for a bit, and he was like, oh yeah, I have a TX60 coming. And I was like, oh cool, that's, you know, you'll be one of the handful of people that have tried the Baka versus the TX60, which the Baka, for those who don't know, because I was accused of stealing designs, even though I very bluntly stated like I looked at a TX60, loved it, but I said I could make this better. Like, I want to make this more specific. But I was like, yeah, that's like where a lot of the inspiration came from, was that keyboard. And I remember him typing on it. He's like, I fucking hate this plate. And I'm like, bingo.
Bingo. There we go.
That's why, because the TX, solid board still. But, you know, I've talked about this, especially with Langlandia a bunch. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I wish more boards would focus on one thing. Stop trying to appease every single person and focus on making your board good. Really, really, I'd rather have a board that's really, really fucking good at like one or two things than a board that's kind of good at a lot of things.
I'm sorry, Chewy, but it's 2021. You got to hit the check marks. You got to hit gasket.
I'm sorry,
polycarb
gasket,
option,
polycarb, 65 with a badge, brass weight,
knob option. You got to hit the check marks. It's 2021. You know, you got to hit the check marks. I don't know what to tell you.
But gasket knob, blocker, OLED, and plus 1 year.
Rotary encoder
via
rotary encoder you can't program unless you know C.
So, but you know, I wish more boards, like the boards that I tend to lean towards, are the ones that are like, we're going to do this and we're going to do this really well. I'm going to make a really good top mounted keyboard. And then they make a really, really good top mounted keyboard. But then it gets looked over because, well, it doesn't have all these checks. It doesn't have the fucking, where's the gaskets? Well, it doesn't need gaskets. Like, well, it's not going to be as good. I'm like, no, that's extremely objective or subjective. Like, so it's hot swap. Yeah, do you get that hot swap bullshit out, right?
Yeah, I was worried in like 2019 when I started seeing this wave of like 65%. So I'm like, it's just gonna be check marks. People are just gonna make 65% now for the sake of making 65s, which now people still are. There was a small resurgence of 75% for a quarter, and then it died out because people were like, wait a second, 75% are kind of shit. No one told GMMK that though.
Dude,
Hey, but they checked out. Listen,
they checked all
they're
the
the definition
boxes.
of
I
checking
told you,
every single
check
box.
boxes. It's 2021. You got to hit those check boxes. That's all it is. If you want to sell a board, hit those check boxes in. Claim you have QMK compatibility, and everyone's gonna open their wallets. And
Yeah, I mean, I've always talked about how like I enjoy boards that are designed with a purpose, which I think is partly what Chewie's getting at. Like you look at like the Iron 165, where like they spent all this time trying to design a plate that was about having an even feel across the board, right? Which the gaskets then added into that feeling and that sound that they were going for. And then obviously the badge and everything was part of the design element. Um, and there's been a lot of boards that are like that, but then there's other ones like you're saying where it's just like they're just trying to throw a knob in there just to get people who want it, just to get the clicks on the Geek Hack page of people going, "Ooh, what's this?"
Gasket 65 with a badge.
Ooh.
I got still one of my favorite comments is someone reached out to me and it was about the Squid 60, and he goes, the plate sucks." I was like, all right, let's dive down this rabbit hole. Why? like let's entertain this. Why? And he goes, well, it's not going to be even. Like it's all like here. Like I've actually like done this and I've done this. He's like, you should try this. And I was like, this is not at all what I want. And he's like, yeah, but you have these relief cuts. I'm like, no. The whole point was to make it as stiff as fucking possible. It's basically an integrated plate. I want it to be this. And he's like, but I've got all these other but you have all these weird. I'm like, no. I'm like, you're missing the point.
Design your own board then, homie.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're gonna go that far.
You're missing the point. The point is I wanted this. And the second you start changing that, it's no longer what I had originally intended. DD decline with your fucking ortholinear Squid 60. Like it no longer it's now something different. And I say this probably once a month. 001 Anthony gave me the best advice, which is make something for you and other people will come. Like you might not be able if you make a plate that is just lines without with just lines of anybody can put anything anywhere on the board, you're going to get a lot of people because you're going to be able to cast that wide of a net. Looking at you, DZ60, but if you make something that's a little bit more specific, more people are going to go, oh, I like this more. Or like, again, people might settle and go, okay, well, maybe I don't need arrow keys on the 60%, or maybe I do like split backspace or something like that. So, it's pick something and kind of stick to it. You don't have to make everybody happy in this hobby. If you're making something and you're making it for you, or you're making it for a select group of people or whatever, make it for that. Don't try and make every single person happy, because one, you're never going to, and two, ISO cutouts ruin plates. Fight me.
Yeah, they legitimately do. Like, there's
you want
an
ISO layout? Grab a handsaw.
Just watch the eyesore layout I did for what the frick my show is called again? Keyboards Tonight. It's been so long, I forgot the names of all these. Actually, surprisingly, sorry, off topic, but Keyboards Tonight, the skit that Hugo did, that actually like exploded in views, like over 200K views.
Really?
Oh, wow.
The Office one?
Yeah, the Office one, like evolution of a keyboard person. Yeah,
that was good.
That one
it was
like exploded.
Well done.
That was extremely well done. That was like all Hugo, which he did absolutely A+ at. I don't know. Maybe with my return to content, I can get the gang back together.
That would be fun. Keyboards Tonight was a good time. It was one of those. It was one of those ones where I feel like sometimes, especially with, granted, there's not as many anymore, but a lot of like the group buy stuff, and even like with build streams, they're not super rewatchable. But Keyboards Tonight was rewatchable because I could go back and like, oh, I missed this. I want to see this. Like I felt like I want to go back and see the segments, go see what y'all were talking about. Whereas like I don't really care to see Nathan solder another switch, I don't feel like going back and watching that, I don't.
In reality, like the best way to rewatch a build stream would be hire an editor and have them edit the highlights.
Yeah.
Beginning of the stream where you talk about an unboxing, a little like 1 minute with dramatic, cool music, cinematic music of fast forward you doing the solder, and then like the last 30 minutes of the build where you're talking about how amazing or whatever the board is or how much you hate it, or that's all you actually need for like a replay of any kind of keyboard build. So if you're a keyboard builder, you need people to rewatch your content, just do that, or do it yourself if you don't want to hire an editor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like one of the main things for keyboards tonight that I personally aim for, which I'm sure it's gonna be really obvious as soon as it says it, which is I wanted keyboards tonight to be the equivalent of a late night keyboard talk show.
Mhm.
You know, like Conan or Kimmel, where there are skits, there are bits in between us talking about like the stream portion, and that's why we have all these. You know, we worked on those pre-recorded bits through the month to have our own like our own alternative way of doing commentary on some kind of subject, right? Like for the evolution of a keyboard user, we could have easily talked about, hey, so what boards did you guys start with? What do you guys think people are starting with today? You think, the evolution, we think, people are buying this? No, he just made that skit, and that's kind of like a good way of like, yeah, people kind of go all in right quick, right? Now with keyboards because they can, right? Back when, mostly for me when I started, kind of for you guys, although less so, there wasn't as many options, right, for someone new. Now, if you join in, there's
You're in the sweet spot.
The absolute sweet spot.
I mean, I love that. There are, it's so funny that the tofu is like extinct now, right? And the tofu, like,
It's gone. Yeah. I mean, it still exists, but yeah,
it still exists, but no one talks about it. Like, and the tofu was like a game changing keyboard. Like, it literally, it made a bigger splash. Like, I'm comfortable saying it made a bigger splash than most of the high end boards nowadays, because suddenly you had a clean, solid keyboard that you could just buy for like $170. And it was the first time that really had happened. The 5 degree was nice, but then it always just got compared to the Fiel, and but the tofu, it was like, oh, it's clean, it's cheap, it's readily available. It literally forced Mechanisk into having to lower his price of his Clippa. Like, it came in and just fucking whipped it out on the table. It was I'm here and I'm fucking here to stay. And I mean, now it's with stuff like the NK65, and I haven't heard too much about the Kara, but I know it's still, again, beginner friendly, entry level. Not entry level boards might be insulting, but I'd say just lower, easier to entry keyboards, where you're able to have more options. The Tada 68 is rough for a first keyboard.
I would still say something like the Kara is still like, I think entry level board is like that's a mentality, right? Not a price point. Because when someone enters the hobby, they would want something. Typically they would want something with hot swap, with RG, with certain features and programmability that make it easier for them to dive into the hobby more, right? Because if someone who's brand new, even though I'm not the biggest fan of hot swap, to anyone who's brand new and wants to get into keyboards, I would recommend a hot swap board so they can try switches. Hot swap
starting off, man. The amount of fucking the amount of DZ60s I have thrown away from just ruining after 2 or 3 desolders.
See, I was really lucky. I was in the hobby back when we only had 5 switch options, all the cherry options, right? Before the cherry patent expired, before Gatoron, really, right? So I would just try each switch as they came out and released. So I never had like this, option anxiety of like, oh no, what's the best linear nowadays with what's the best lube, what's the best tactile, something with bobas and something with linear bullshit and this and that. Like, I never like had that worry because. Well, I guess now I do because there's like a million new switches that I don't know about. I got like 4 switches in recently that I literally have no clue what they're supposed to, like, anything about them. I'm gonna do my own force curve graphs this week. But man, like, yeah, for anyone starting out, a hot swap board isn't something necessarily like to scoff or look down on if you're brand new. It's a great tool if you're brand new.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, for someone who, even if you're not brand new, like I love, like I have my wife's Squid 60. She usually uses 65% because she hates me, but she does not hate me, by the way. But I use her Squid 60 has a hot swap PCB in it because sometimes I just like throwing in switches to test out. So even if I would say always have one readily available, and I've got one in a board that I know everything about. I know how certain switches are going to feel about 90% of the way just by feeling one and going, okay, I know how this is going to transfer over. Now let's test it out. Let's throw in 6 or 7 switches. I don't need to rebuild the whole damn keyboard to get a full grasp of exactly how it's going to feel because I have more experience with that board than, you know, any other board, but it's such a good tool to have in your arsenal of just being able to go, I want to test this real quick. And then, you know, and then Franken switching, right? That's a whole other option where you now can go, okay, well, I'm curious now how this feels. Or I'm curious now how this with this spring feels. And you just pop them in. You don't have to deal with this whole issue of all of that. So
I do want to say though, as much as I do enjoy hot swap and it does have its place, not every group buy needs to offer hot swap. Don't be
Yeah.
going
Yes.
and giving shit to makers who are like, I don't want to offer hot swap. It's not my vision. That is
Yeah.
rightfully so. Like I've seen that so many times in the last year of people being like, why does this, you know, $550 high end $600 plus board not offer hot swap? It's like, because this is not designed for people who are unsure about what they want to put in this. This is a, you know what you want to do, you've got it planned, or you're okay with just desoldering it or buying 2 PCBs or 2 plates.
yeah. I'd say I'm comfortable saying that the three of us are someone where if you buy a board, you're planning what's going to go in it. You're sitting there planning, going, okay, what switches are going to be, and if it's not that, like, at least before, you're not just putting something in it and hoping that you'll like it. There's a good chance that if you've been in the hobby long enough, you're probably, you know, oh, it's a gasket board, so I'll probably want a switch that's going to sound good, or and I have a list of switches that I like, and so what's going to go well in this, where, you know, you can go through those growing pains a lot faster and a lot more efficiently with a hot swap. But that also in turn does, you know, sorry that you don't, this is such a douchey thing to say, but sorry that you don't know or are too afraid to solder your key colts and iron 165s, but that doesn't mean that they have to offer something specifically for you.
Okay, I'm gonna bait out an answer because I already know the answer to this question.
Ooh.
Which group is worse? People who incessantly ask for hot swap on group buys and boards that don't have it, or people who incessantly ask for their layout support on key sets?
See, I'm going to say board because
Really?
I only have experience. This is my reasoning.
Okay.
I only
wanna hear
have
this.
experience as a keyboard group buy runner. I don't have experience as a keycap group buy runner. So when I'm being now, I've been fortunate that with the board that I've run, it is a standard 60%. So I'm like, yes, this will work if you get it. But I still get that question a lot of like, well, does it support hot swap? I'm like, yes, it supports like this exact one. It's like, well, what if I don't want that one? I'm like, well, too bad. Like, sorry, either design a new plate from scratch or what. But yeah, that's mine because of experience.
I'm going to say the layouts because there are more groups of people that feel left out by the layouts and they are way too aggressive. Was it I think it was Olivia Plus Plus.
Who's worse, 40% crowd or ISO crowd?
I don't even think it's ISO crowd. It's all the other like random layouts.
Where are my 3U keys?
And I'm like, you like 40s is a known entity at this point, right? They're gonna beg for it. they'll get
We're
it.
And they're not
still-
going to
It
get
won't hit.
Where's Static? We're Static. 'Cause Static, I mean,
Yeah.
he's definitely. So when I was making the 40, he was like, "Whoa, it's not gonna have 3 U keys." Well, I'm fucking out of this. Like, what the fuck
But
does that
but
even
40s
mean?
is a known entity. They'll beg for it. The maker will put it in the group buy. It won't hit, or someone will buy like 20 sets so it hits and they can get it. And then, but all the other ones like the Culverac, all the other random type of layouts, the different EU stuff that people want, I'm like, dude, listen, just figure it out. Just use the regular keys and figure it out. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Like, come on.
It's because the way I think about it, like if you choose to use a 40%, you should willingly know at that point you're locking yourself out of the normal keycap ecosystem. Because the normal keycap ecosystem has to work for the most amount of people for the least amount of money. That's reality, right? That's what MOQs are basically, right? So if there are not enough 40% users who want to buy something, which there almost never are, it's not going to happen. People see these trends. People decide, let's just stop wasting our time designing 40% kits that never make MOQ anyways. Yeah, I think you're right, though. I mean, I think it's the other layouts, which I'm just going to group as 40% plus split people. More so than like ISO, because most ISO is still supported, or at least they can, make it work.
Right.
To a degree, right? Even if an ISO kit is separated, usually they still have like somewhat of a chance to hit MOQ if they are separated. Unlike
Listen,
40% where never.
all these people that are against the mod pipe and tilde.
Fuck off.
Like, I get it. That's what you want to do. It's your design and do it. But like, at least give me the option and make me pay for it. Give me the ISO treatment and put me in a child kit and let me pay you more money, and you can make more money by me wanting to have that.
I agree. Let him pay for it so I don't have to.
Hey, there you go. Like, even if it's in a numpad kit, like, just put it somewhere so I can at least buy it. Like,
Yeah, you have the option for it. Not
come
like
on.
it still baffles me. They're like, well, I don't need it. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's what I was saying earlier of make something for you. Like, I feel like boards are made for specific people, but keycaps are made for everyone. So
let's just go back to pre-Songon kits, okay? Let's go back to 2013 when we didn't have 1.5U mods, okay? Everyone wins and everyone loses at the same time.
We're all fucked.
You're gonna get your fucking 6.25 bottom row. Or you're out. Fuck win keyless. But yeah, like, who's it hurting? Who like? I don't know prices on GMK, but I am willing to bet that that 2 keys is not going to increase the price of it even by $5.
Well, I don't think it's that. I don't think the price has nothing to do with it. It's all about design and their vision for it, which I understand.
I'm like, well, I don't,
truly
because
understand.
I'm like, fuck your vision. Like,
Well,
it's a keycap set, make it for people.
Well, no, because it goes back to what you said about you make what you want, right? With the keyboard.
But that's for boards.
But the same thing for keycap set. You can't have it both ways. You can't say for a board.
I literally just said it like a minute ago. Yeah,
the man wants it both
people.
ways.
Boards are for people. Boards are for the singular or the small group. Keycaps are for everyone. Because everyone needs keycaps, but not everyone needs a tiny keyboard or a huge keyboard.
Okay, on the flip side of the argument, not everyone needs those keycaps, as not everyone needs that board.
Fair, but you're in my opinion, you're hurting more, because as someone said earlier, I think it was Gio, you can't go back and it's way harder to go back and make a keycap or a singular keycap.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at the fucking F8. All right, 6 years. We just talked about last 6 years.
There's no F8. F8 is a lie. It's a lie.
It's a lie.
It's a lie.
If you want a board to support ortho, you can most likely find someone who will design and reverse engineer. If you want your layout supported, via a plate or something, there's a way that you can kind of back end do that. It's a lot harder to be like, okay, well, Muted 2 doesn't have a mod pipe key, so I'm gonna go hit up GMK and have them. No, they're not gonna do that.
Yeah. But my thing is that the middle ground of make it available in a child kit, if I want it that bad and I want your keycap set that bad, I will buy it. Right? And if I don't buy it, it doesn't hit, then we're in the same position that every 40s kit is in.
Ooh, can I add to the argument real quick?
Go for it.
This is specific. I'm just doing this to take a shot at Eric. Are you going to buy it though? Because I have been told specifically by you, I will only buy a key set if the base kit will make me happy.
Yeah, so then I won't.
Fair.
I mean, but we're talking about
now
giving
you're not
the
purchasing
option.
It. Now you're not purchasing it.
But give me the option.
So ultimately, from this little debate, obviously 7-bit was right all along with this bullshit Ponzi group buy scenario where you can buy like one key at a time. Have you guys ever ordered from 7-bit?
No,
but I have seen those Geek spreads.
Nebula and Busy Timmy. Thank you for the.
So maybe 7-bit was right all along. You just choose to buy a single cap from them at a time.
Also, to be fair,
you enter your order in through that bot, which is still extremely sketchy in my opinion. You hope the bot gets to your syntax right,
mm-hmm.
and then hopefully you pay and have caps at some point in your life, and he's not using your money to pay for the last run.
And to be fair, Dave, I said that before the mod pipe and tilde thing were out of base kits.
I know. I'm just using that against you because it accurately helped. I pulled a specific quote from a specific line of dialogue to help assist me out of context. Of course, I'm playing the long game of the argument.
It's one of those things. You have to have compromises here, and that's what I'm willing to compromise. Put me in a base kit that may not have it, and then put my mod pipe and tilde in a child kit. And you know what? Make me buy the numpad, because how many times do I get a board and I'm like, I don't have a fucking numpad and I can't use this on this build stream because this keycap set sits in a bag 90% of the time, and I need the damn numpad kit now, and I don't have it.
That's kind of why Modern Dolch just sits in a bag for me, because I'm like, that shit supports everything. The only thing that doesn't support, I don't have the split space bars. I actually gave the split space bars to Blind Assassin, but but that I'm like 90% of keyboards at least that are 60 to full size that supports. Do you still have GMK Cyan, by the way? Because I remember that was like the classic. All right, what are we putting on? All right, we're putting Cyan on it.
That was I don't know what to do with my life. Nice on totally overexposed, because this is like one of the brightest whites GMK has.
Good lord.
Do you still have your E6 V2 don't touch board?
Yes, I do. I'm thinking of actually stripping the finish of the top part and having a raw brass top and then the polished bottom to do a crazy two-tone.
Interesting.
There it is. Because I remember that's probably one of the non-001 Anthony build streams where I watched start to finish, because I was just so intrigued, and it was like, and this was like peak Holy Panda, and you're like, oh, I'm saving Holy Pandas for this, like, and that was like that. I remember that being like, when I'm thinking of iconic build streams, that's one of them that I put in there. Like, I always think of, to me, there's the Key Cult build stream that made Nathan Kim Teha types. So there's that one. I remember and that one, of course, and it's infamous, I'd say the apiary saran wrap one is still gets me every single time. But like these build streams that were like, oh, shit, this is like something I'm going to remember for a very, very long time, because that we just hadn't seen that. We don't really see that. I just saw a board get announced. God, what was it called? it's like the Pig 60,
The piggy.
the Piggy 60, where it's like, oh, we're making all brass versions. Like, all right, there it is. I haven't seen an all brass version of a board in a hot minute.
Oh, Nabulin just posted the picture he took of my E6 V2 FE at the NorCal meetup 2 years ago.
In the glass, yeah.
In the glass case, yeah. Actually, like, I brought it to the meetup in a glass. Oh no, it was like a plastic case. It's supposed to be for like model diecast cars.
The second picture is as it where it shows the whole. I fucking love
the
that.
next picture. Yeah, it's just something.
It looks like a fucking trophy. I remember like looking at that. My first, it's like, you have your instinct reaction and then you have your actual reaction. I remember my first thing seeing, I was like, wow, what a douchebag.
I had a good reaction.
And then the second one was like, okay, fingerprints, I got it.
It was a very Chad move to do at that meetup.
Speaking of Chad moves, my favorite, we have I think our only vlog video. There's a classic Huey moment where you go from, I'm gonna put this in a case so it doesn't get smudged, to I actually hand delivered you your Rukia and you opened it up and then wrote your name.
Yeah, wrote your name and
the PVD coding, and people were like, what the fuck?
Like, it's my board, guys, come on.
just marking my territory. The funny thing about the picture where you can see the full case is that there's your your Alice is just sitting in front of it, when it's like, now that board's probably worth way more than the FE. Oh man,
I'm gonna see if I can find that video because I took it on my phone. I didn't have a camera with me, but I was like, oh, I'll do like a little over the shoulder unboxing video of him writing this out. And I'm now determined to find this video.
While you look for that, I'm going to the restroom real quick.
All right, we can throw it to a be right back. Or actually, here, we'll do an ad talk.
Heyo, there you go.
We'll do an ad talk. So, guys, be sure to check out OmniType. You can go to mexondeck.omnitype.com. We've got GMK Dual Shot Round 2 up and running. They got 2 different base kits, lots of other options. There's some cool UV printed caps as well. So be sure to check that out. Don't miss out. It's a fantastic set. Next up, we got mexondeck.project.link for project keyboards. In 2 days, Bingsu Round 2. Man, this is just like the Eric exploratorium of key sets that he loves.
Right.
But Bingsu Round 2 is launching there. That will be up and running in, like I said, 2 days. So be sure to maybe bookmark that link. Helps us out, gives us a little kickback. Canonkeys.com/mexondeck. Tomorrow, I believe they said tomorrow, either tomorrow or in 2 days, the Obliterated 75 is coming back. They haven't polycarb. They've also got GMK beige and white on black running, as well as the Uwu kit for that. GMK Alchemy is running. They still have devastating TKLs in stock as of last night. It looks like you can still grab all the B stocks are still available, and a couple of the A stocks are still available. So be sure to check out canonkeys.com/mexondeck. And then, of course, Kinetic Labs. You can pick up the new Hippo switches, which are the Gateron with Oompa Loompa stems. And as well as other awesome, you can get their cool desk mats. They've got storage options. They've got lots of different stuff on there. And then we also have some awesome partners, which I'll pass off to Eric because I'm
real quick. Kinetic Labs. You should just get their cases. Their switch cases are actually like
I've got one
A+.
like right. It's I'm too in focus. That's like my dishes because I usually clean, but I didn't. But it's definitely A+. But I'm gonna hydrate while Eric talks to you about our partners.
Yeah. So you head on over to zapcables.com, pick yourself up a DIY kit, build yourself a fancy new cable. It may be frustrating, but we got a video where we went through the frustrating times to learn how to make one, so you don't have to, and you can just watch our video and learn how to make it before you need to get your fingers all burned and dirty making a cable. They also got some nice desk mats over there, so check them out. Type Beast, go to typebia.st, sign up for their newsletter. Sends them out every once in a while. It's a great newsletter, keep you up to date with things that are happening in the community, new group buys, gives you thoughts and kind of viewpoints of where they stand on things that are happening. Go to smithrune.com, check out more info about the Iron 165 and Iron 180. There's going to be an Iron 165 polycarb edition in stock coming out soon. So definitely head on over there. Also check out their merch that they've got over there. And then 3D Keebs, they've got tons of stuff, like literally lots of stuff. Just go check it out.
Things.
They got lube, switches, big ass desk mats. I think that's literally what they're called. They're like big ass mats.
Desk mat.
Yeah, go check it out. Just go check it out.
And worth noting, 3D Keeps is on vacation, so I believe you can still place orders, but no, there is going to be a shipping delay. Help her buy a margarita or 6. There you go. Absolutely. So, let's talk about, you've been around the block a few times in keyboards. You've been here for a hot minute. So I want to take us through. This is just a very open-ended question, and I just want to listen to you talk for a minute, or a few minutes. Take us through your perception and view of the hobby, because, and I want no holds bars, Huey. I want no holding back, Huey, because you had some spicy takes on it before we went live, and you don't have to necessarily repeat everything you said, but I want to, you started what, 2013, 2014?
13.
It's been a minute, 8 years, either coming up on 8 years or 8 years now. I want to hear how your perception of the hobby has changed since 2013, when most of us had no idea that you could even customize a keyboard.
Oh, where do I start? Okay, let's start in 2013, and I just need to pull one resource to put this in gigantic context for everyone. Perfect. Here we go. So 2013 is when I really got into the keyboard hobby as just a person who just got into keyboards. And in 2013, you know how many subscribers there were to RMK? Anyone want to take a guess?
A couple thousand, maybe like 5,000 tops.
Very close. 6,800. That's it.
Good Lord.
2013. There's only 6,800 subs, or not subs. Yes, there are called subs, huh?
Yeah.
To RMK. It was tiny. Okay, it was tiny, and literally every year for like over 5 years, we'd have like a big year announcement post. It's like, we've doubled again, we've doubled again, because things, really picked up. And of course, for those who don't know, RMK was started by Ripster, who used to be an active member in our community. He started RMK after getting booted from both Geek Hack and Desk Authority, and basically said, I'm gonna make RMK to do it better. Back then, there's a lot of old drama that you guys won't ever need to know or worry about. Just know that that's literally why RMK started, as a counterculture to Geek Hack, and then Desk Authority, which was also started by people who left Geek Hack, as a nice little FYI. Now they're under new ownership as of like last month, I believe. But you guys, no one probably knows that really, because I don't think anyone who watches the shows on Desk Authority often.
I'd venture to say maybe one, maybe one, and they don't come to the live stream.
Fair enough.
The VOD frogs.
The VOD frogs. So the community was a much different place. Like, back then, I remember, because I was in college at the time when I started getting into keyboards, and you would see the same front page for like 2-3 days in a row, with maybe like one new post. And back then, it was much different. Today, like, I think at least I refer to RMK as like just a keyboard, like just an alternative keyboard Instagram, basically.
Yeah,
because the only thing that matters is just people posting pics and upvoting pics that look nice.
I don't subscribe to any mechanical keyboard subreddit anymore. Like, I had to separate myself some. And I was like, when I'm on Reddit, I don't need keyboard shoved in my face, because while I enjoy doing this is a great hobby. I really enjoy doing being able to talk about keyboards a lot, I will go to RMK, but most of the time, anything I'm looking for, I'm not going to find it there. And then Mech Market, that's a dangerous place, so I just try to avoid that in general. But yeah, I don't, it's a lot of, and even like was it custom keyboards, I think, and then that place I was just not a huge fan of.
That's relatively new in the history
in the history of
subreddits.
RMK. It's definitely not one of the newer ones.
So yeah, through 2013, 14, 15, things started really picking off steam, especially 2015 when the Cherry patent expired, where we'd see late 2015 to 2016 the release of GAT switches and potential other clones from Greetech and whoever else. So Gateron was the real belle of the ball then, because they're the only ones really willing to sell to enthusiasts. Because fun fact, back in the day when Cherry was the only option, people used to do group buys for Cherry switches because Cherry still held to their MOQ of 48,000 switches. And back then there were no small vendors. There was no novel keys or any kind of equivalent at all, basically. There's like Tech Keys who didn't really sell switches. They sold other stuff. Other than that, like if you wanted switches, people would literally just either do a group buy for switches. Like, oh, I need some Cherry MX clears. Let's do a group buy to get freaking switches. Or people were buying like cool 87s and other like 87 keys and desoldering them just for switches. So switches used to cost a lot. So yeah, there was a different community, and when people had to struggle so much for so little, it definitely strengthens the core of the community back then. And that core of the community stayed pretty strong all the way throughout until around 2018, in my opinion. And that was like the biggest change in the community. But for this, for these nice five years, it was a smaller community. Most posts on RMK were text posts about people asking questions about keyboards or about learning to solder. Because back then it was less about the pictures, because GMK, there was maybe one GMK set a year. So when that shipped, everyone would post for the whole month all the GMK pictures they got, because that's the one set everyone saved up for. Because back then, GMK sets would struggle to make MOQ because people didn't realize the value yet, or people weren't sure of it, because people were already spending so much on trying to just be in the hobby as an enthusiast. Because there was no hot swap either. So yeah, the community was really close, really tight back then. I met a lot of amazing people, and I started doing meetups. When did I start doing meetups? 2015 or 2016 was my first meetup in SoCal, and that was really when I felt like I really started to communicate with the community. My first meetup was 7 or 8 people. We met at the patio section of some fast food restaurant. Which like is a normal public place. People just like walking by with their trays of food, and it's like, what are these nerds doing with like these like 20 keyboards on a table among only like 8 people? It was really wild because because I didn't ask for like an RSVP. I literally put a post on RMK and just said, hey, this day, this time, this place, I'll be outside with keyboards if you want to hang out and talk about keyboards. We had 8 people show up, and that was actually really good. I was like, yeah, it was really cool. I actually, for the first time ever, talked to people in person about keyboards. And you guys know, right, from talking with me, going to meetups, right? Talking to someone in person about your hobby is night and day compared to even what we're doing right here, right? There's so much nuance that you get when you communicate to people in the real world as opposed to online, no matter how close we can try to get with webcams and good audio. So, from there, every year I started doing meetups in SoCal and NorCal. Back then I lived in SoCal, so I did a lot of SoCal meetups. I partnered with Elite Keyboards for like my second meetup, which was like 30 people. Then Originative for a meetup, which was like 60 people. And then Datamancer for like 100 something people. And at that point, it officially became like Huey is a meetup host person now, because Huey's now hosted the biggest meetup in mechanical keyboards to date, which I still have the record for. That's later on, but it's kind of through that. And as a note, this was back when I could advertise a meetup by just posting an RMK, because RMK still moved slow enough that enough people would see that meetup post. Think about it now. If you put like a text post, right, and not an image post, an RMK now, it's going to be gone like that, because everyone's going to post, hey, look at my nice new setup. Look at all these RGBs, or look at this insert whatever
It's
thing
just
here.
our battle stations.
Yeah, it's just our battle stations, but with nicer key sets.
Yeah.
So yeah, the community was much different back then.
Things have changed.
What do you think happened in, you mentioned 2018. What do you think happened in 2018 that shifted the community? And do you think because I almost kind of feel like there was another shift last year that also kind of like changed the hobby again. But what was that for you in 2018?
So ultimately, it became a point where there's just so many people in the hobby. And that's just kind of it. Like, I think all kind of like niches or communities, when they reach like a certain critical mass, a certain boiling point of a certain amount of people, I don't know how to describe it, but people just, the focuses and priorities change, because when a group gets to a certain mass, vocal minorities suddenly become way more impactful than when a group was smaller, right? I don't mean vocal minorities necessarily in a bad way, right? There are good and bad vocal minorities. There are people who should be, trying to preach and trying to, forward certain agendas that we may agree with or may not agree with. But at a certain point of population, I always felt like at a certain point, just these certain vocal minorities that probably weren't the best for our community, they could reach more people because they are vocal and a minority, and there's suddenly a mass of people who didn't know otherwise, or at least I believe, maybe I don't think they had, the values that the original core community mostly shared. Because it was a lot different back then. And then I think that was one of the big things that changed. And interesting, you mentioned something last year. I think I there's kind of noticed that, and that's kind of partially why I took my little hiatus these last 3 months. But even then, like, I didn't think it got super bad. It just got different. I don't think I don't think at that point it was bad, because I mean, at that point in 2019, I had a pretty big meetup with pretty good people, but then again, typically only the best people come to meetups.
Right.
Or at least everyone puts their Sunday best on, right, for a meetup.
Yeah.
Right. No one goes to a meetup.
No one's
to be
trolling. Yeah, you're not going to go there and troll.
No one's usually, people aren't like being dicks at meetups.
They have their keyboard still, but they can't hide behind it in the same way they can online.
Yeah, because someone's just So I mean, during that time, I was still doing meetups. I moved back up to Central California. So at that point, I mostly just let SoCal people do what they want for meetups, because it's 5-hour drive for me. I'm not going to organize a meetup 5 hours from me. That's just logistically impossible. Although it's still logistically a problem for me doing the NorCal meetups, because I live 3 hours away from where they're hosted. Yeah, right. And people were like, "Huey, when are you going to do a meetup?" I'm like, "Man, you guys live there." But I still have that mantle of responsibility, and I mean, I'm still hoping to do a meetup this year if possible, but TBD with Corona and everything. So yeah, around 2018, 2019, the community definitely exploded. I think that was like one of the last times I paid attention to, like, we're doubling. I'm sure it's still at a pretty fast, high trajectory since then. But since then, I'm like, okay, this has actually become like a big hobby. Relatively big compared to the 5 years before that, where it was 6,000 people, right? Where then, let's see, if I go to 2019, let's see where we're at. How many people are in 2019?
It was still a good chunk. It was still a solid chunk of people.
Now it's an industry now, basically.
355,000 in 2019 compared to 6,000 in 2013-14, right? So that's that's just a huge population change. And of course, population changes and dynamics affect the hobby in, you know, good and bad ways. I mean, even like Nebulon said, 2019 was huge NorCal. I think 2018 was bigger. 2018 was at Nest. Yeah, and 2017 was at Nest. Whichever one was at Nest was probably the biggest one. I don't think Nebulon went to that one because he was sick. Because imagine getting sick before a meetup. It's the
I
video.
found it. There it is.
Whoa.
Writing his name right on it.
There you go, right on that PVD.
That's how you assert authority.
And that's it's fucking
That's George.
Jorge, Mr.
Yeah, Jorge,
Mr.
yep.
George of Key Colt.
Yep, the guys from Keep
Creeping in the background. Yeah, it's crazy to me because, you know, as Neb said, there has been a huge shift, and, you know, I felt like when I joined kind of about 7 or 8 months before it popped, before it exploded. Basically earlier in the year, and it was still pretty decently sized because I'll never forget asking Eric, wait, he builds a keyboard every single week? Like, just blown away that someone could build a keyboard every single week and just have that
Wow.
much to do. Yeah, right. And, you know, seeing it was very much like a word of mouth hobby. It wasn't, you know, you might find it on our battle stations, you know, where it's like, oh, that's a cool keyboard. What is that? And I think that's how I found, because I was on RMK for probably close to a year before I actually got into the hobby, because it was cool. I was in the gaming, and it was just another cool place to see cool tech stuff. And that's when I saw, you know, SA Godspeed right here, because, you know, Grail sets take 13 months when you have to wait 7 months for a box. But so, you know, but it's still just very intriguing to now. It's like, oh, people are discovering it through videos, through streaming, through, you know, all these other things where there are articles being written. There are, you know, it's popping up everywhere. Whereas it just was kind of like, oh yeah, I got in because I knew this person who talked to me about it, or this person showed me this stream, but I wasn't just chilling on Twitch one day and then I stumbled upon a guy building a keyboard. It was, oh, you should check this person out because they looked for it or they saw it on RMK.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested because you mentioned a little bit, and you were like, hey, maybe we'll talk about that later. When I mentioned the investment aspect of keyboards. And I feel like with the world over the last year and a half, we've had a lot of people that are looking for things that are investment. We've got people buying shoes, holding them off as investments. People buying, you know, shorted stocks, try to get quick investments. We've got Dogecoin hitting 50, 60 cents. Bitcoin hitting all-time highs.
And recent time lows, man. It's crashing. I'm watching.
You want to hear a fun fact?
What's that?
Before 2017, there was only one key set that would sell for higher than retail. Every GMK set before 2017, if you sold it on Mech Market, you could only sell it for under retail.
Even in 2018, there were a few sets where it was, you know, you had to sell it typically at like a 10. It was usually like, I'll sell it at group buy price, but then you'd lose money on shipping. Or if you were lucky and found someone desperate enough, you might make $10 on it.
Yeah. But so back then, like in the early days, the only sets that would sell for more than retail and would sell pretty similar to like how things are marked up today was SA Pulse. In 2015, I actually almost bought an SA Pulse set for $400.
Jeez.
Good Lord.
But the seller backed out. I was willing to buy, but the seller backed out.
Good Lord.
It
was a different time back then. But back then, if I had, you know, a GMK set, I would sell at a loss if I didn't want it, or I'd sell it for group buy and lose on shipping. That was the norm basically before 2017.
I sold Nautilus for like an $11 loss.
Yeah. I mean, even in 2017, 2018, people were selling. You really couldn't get away with selling it for much more than retail. You'd sell it for like extra price plus shipping. Like basically, it was like I'm not losing money, right? Like you weren't making money, but you weren't losing money. And then
And then Olivia and Serica came out.
Yes.
It's those two sets are like the pivotal where it's like, I want $350 for Olivia, and someone's like, I'll take it.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It started this kind of new trend because people always forget. I always bring it up because people forget. Round 1 Olivia legitimately struggled to make MOQ.
Took like 2.5 weeks to get to MOQ.
So out of the 250 required, it ended with like 280 something. That's not that much higher than MOQ. But then once the pictures started and people started posting it, then the hype exploded. Everyone's just like, you shouldn't have missed out. It almost didn't make MOQ. And now everyone's like nutting over it, just like they were out of TA Royal Alpha, this one as well, that Mass Drop actually had to extend for 2 weeks to make MOQ. And it made MOQ by like 4 units. And then like 3 months after it shipped, it went for like $400 when they were barely able to make MOQ for the set at 110. Yep. Right? It's so that kind of idea kind of started this mentality, because that of course that's just, a natural progression of supply and demand. There's not many sets, and it suddenly became popular, so people wanted it. But that kind of started getting to the mindset of, well, I have this set, maybe I should just sell it for high, and kind of everyone got then to that mindset. So yeah, one thing I don't like is just, I mean, I talked about it earlier, which is I don't like people buying just for investments, especially for like limited things. And this is like the old crotchety, I've been in keyboards for a long time thing, because it used to be like, it's only because it used to be a really, really small hobby. But in like really small hobby terms, people who are like into like open source stuff probably can relate. But typically people were like, flipping was not a thing. It literally didn't exist. You'd be blackballed out of the community if you flipped back in the day. Like that just wasn't a thing. People would like, okay, if you want to sell for what you paid for, great. That's understandable, right? You balance out as long as it's in a great condition still. But nowadays, right, if you're not selling for at least double, you're a fool. You're actually a fool.
You're losing money.
You're actually a fool if you're not selling for at least double nowadays. Which is ridiculous. And that's not even just for key sets. That's for keyboards as well. Like anything, unless it's like something from KBD fans. Sorry, KBD fans, but you're not flippable.
Well, even then though, the Polaris was selling for $700.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not.
Items.
I mean, that's someone else designing and selling.
Yeah, I count that. Yeah,
it's not a in-house thing, but
it's not a tofu.
Yeah,
no one's flipping
a tofu.
If you are, dude, props. Like honestly, get your bag, dude. That's work. You're earning it if you're flipping a tofu.
If you flipped it, then you ABCs, man, you're just always closing.
If you're a hustler and you started with a paperclip and you ended with a tofu, more power to you.
Dude,
exactly.
Nothing pains me more than when I see a hype board that people waited like a year and a half for, that they're trying, that like really want, and it was limited, and it's on Mech Market for like 3 times, 4 times price, and it has not been built at all.
Yep.
Like never been touched.
You had no intention of ever building this board.
At least build it, right? Like at least build it and use it. You'll lose a little bit of money. There's gonna be someone's still gonna buy it. You're still gonna make money, but at least like try it out, you know?
So it's one of those things where like
Lightning Keyboards. Thank you for the 77 bodies raid. Welcome. We're chatting with Mr. Man of Interest. If you don't know who he has been around in the hobby for a hot minute now. 2013, and was one of the founding members of Top Clack before going off on his own keyboard journey. And we're chatting currently about kind of the state of the changes of the community since 2017.
Don't worry, Diego and his audience probably know who
I'm sure they know exactly who you are, but for the handful of people that may not. hot minute.
So
There it
so
is.
yeah, it's one of the things where while I don't like it, I just like an old crotchety man, I just have to accept that's how the world runs now, right? Unfortunately, that's just it be how it do, for better or worse. I won't deny it. I sold my Jane V2 for a lot of money. I'm not gonna deny it at all,
You'd be
right?
stupid not to.
Exactly. Like
You're leaving money on the table. But as we've said before, it's if I buy an iron 165, which I would never because it's a 65%, but let's say I bought an iron 165. If I build it and I use it for a few weeks and then I'm just like, I can't, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I did something relatively similar with the Austin. I just was like, I just found myself not using it as much and it was just kind of sitting there. And I was like, you bought it and you enjoyed it, but if you genuinely don't like it, or you tried it and it's just maybe you see I can go as far as to say is, do you think it's worth $2,000 sitting on your shelf? Well, if you buy it and then you're like, I like it, but it's maybe it's not worth the $2,000. There's no I don't see the harm. I don't you're if you go out, well, I'm gonna do the honorable thing. Now maybe sell your friends, maybe ask your friends, hey, you know maybe if you're very nice or whatever and your friend wanted one, it's like maybe sell it to them for what you paid, but don't leave money on the table, because then you're just if you go and go, okay, well, I'll sell my iron 160 for $600, 165 for $600, because I don't want to be known as a flipper. A flipper is going to come in and buy it for 600 and turn around and flip it for 15 and laugh their way to the bank with their $900 they just made. Like,
yeah.
don't leave money on the table. But that being said, I don't like the people that are just going into it going, it's like the Iron 165 that popped up it was like $2,500, and it was one of
So
the first people
yeah.
to receive the board.
So before we get too deep into this conversation, which is like a whole nother stream in itself, let's go back to the original question of like my thoughts of like
Yes.
the community. So I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate and flack for this. But I honestly believe the current community, the average MKer is probably the most pseudo informed, ignorant person they've ever been in the community. Like the average keyboard enthusiasts, like it's like they heard they did the most basic bare research about like supply side economics and suddenly think they're a fucking god and they know how to fix every single problem. Like, oh, why don't they just make more? Why don't they just stock everything? Oh, meh, 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 meh. Obviously, my Discord friend knows a guy who works as a forklift driver and he told me to fix those issues. You just gotta do X, Y, and Z. So why don't they just do X, Y, and Z? Duh, problem solved. I was like, oh, come on. You know enough to not. Why don't you know enough to realize you don't know enough yet? You're almost there. You're almost to the point where you've learned that you don't know enough, but they don't get to that point. They just think they know the solution to everything, and they're like, oh, the metal costs this much. How much could the machining cost? Is free, isn't it? Once you have the material, like what?
No.
So like, there's just people didn't used to be like that, which is like, why did people become like this? How did the average person become seemingly so ignorant, right? You take an individual, they're smart, but you take a mass of people, suddenly everyone's an idiot. No offense, idiots. But it's like everyone thinks like everyone thinks in like the most, let's see, how do I like incorrect cynical way, right? There's like the cynical way of saying like, oh, they should do this and that, but there's like the incorrect way of like, oh, you should just write everything off and pay your family so you can deduct it. That's like dude, that's tax evasion. Like they're trying to follow that logic to run a keyboard business, or try to tell people they should run businesses like oh, just make more, just keep it in stock, all like
I think, I think, and it's funny because I think,
Liberation's got a great
yeah,
quote.
lots of business.
Lots of business understanders.
I think we're also like pseudo part of the problem of why that's happening, us being content creators, because in the before times, there wasn't the ability to consume, to get a base understanding on such an elementary level of things in the community. There was a lot more effort that had to be involved in order to have a higher understanding. And so you had to get things, you had to figure things out for yourself in a sense, and you had to like actually spend time and effort to get different switches and get different boards, go to meetups. Whereas now there's so much content that you can just pseudo formulate your opinions based off of
Someone else's opinion.
the 15 opinions you can get in a certain day on Twitch, right? And while not having any experience whatsoever.
So I think another part of it is kind of like it comes down to like the core of people. And maybe Diego can kind of like understand this a little bit. But back in the day, if you were being like just a total smooth brain, people would tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, oh crap, yeah, I am being a smooth brain. Now it's like, well, you know what? My Discord friend says otherwise. Like, who's your friend? He's a guy who watched this other video who said this based off information they got from another video. And it's like a circular logic of like, I got it. A got the information from B, who got the information from C, who got the information back from A, and therefore A is like, I'm right. See, I got it from B. B got it from C. I don't know where C got it from. A, and it's just like, so like it's different now. Yeah, it's like Dotnik says, you know, people are treating friends like primary sources. And it's like an internet telephone, like Silhouette said. That's confusing. It's not Silhouette, but yeah. So it's like people they're able to learn, but they're not able to learn enough to realize they don't know enough. And it's like what Jasef said. It's harder to say harder to admit you don't know something. And that's kind of like, that is definitely, I guess, an obstacle. Like I'm always willing to admit, like I'm an idiot, dude. Like. I agree. Yeah, you should. I am pretty smooth brain, and that's why I have to work extra hard to, you know, figure out information, just to get by. So yeah, I know that's most like how I feel about the community, which is like everyone just feels it just seems so ignorant these days, and just like they think they know everything, but they truly don't. And they're not willing to like think about other sides. Like people are like, oh, GMK's a scam. I'm like, really? How are they scamming you? Please enlighten me on how they are taking your money and not giving you anything back. Tell me how this is a physical definition of a scam. And you said it's a scam, so tell me, how is this a goddamn scam? And it, yeah, people, I don't know like why they think it's just okay to like be wrong and not realize it.
You can always shut the fuck up. You can always.
So like
in life, 9 times unless you're like on trial, like you pretty much always have the option to just shut the fuck up. It might not be the best option, it might not be, but it will get you at least the least judged. If you just go, I don't.
All I'm just gonna say to the average RMKer who maybe is slightly more ignorant than others, the Fifth Amendment exists also as your own personal leisure. You can just take the Fifth whenever, you know. Yep. It's taking the Fifth isn't taking an L. It's just shutting the fuck up.
So Archetype brings up a great point, which is differences back in the day. It was let's figure it out together. Now it's, well, I know more than you, and that makes me feel superior, and I'm not going to share it with you. I'll share anything.
I'll share whatever.
I'll share. I don't want to out this person, but there is someone very specific that I was asking a bunch of questions to, and they refused to answer. And I was like, well, where can I find this info? And they said, well, in my private server. I'm like, okay, well, is there any chance I could get in this server? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so you're withholding information. You're not allowing me access to learn the information, why did you even bring up the fact that you have this information? You don't, if not only to make yourself feel better. This is before I was in Mechs on Deck, before on anything, and it left such a sour taste in my mouth that I was literally, and I remember, and I know Eric knows exactly what I'm talking about, because it just left such a bad taste in my mouth that I was like, it was the first really bad negative experience in the hobby that I got. And it made me think, like, I don't want, I never want to be the person that's like if I have to withhold information, it's because someone asked me to withhold information, and I will straight up tell them, I can't tell you this because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, in speaking of your situation, damn, that as people would say, that sounds like what would be considered a dick move.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, if anyone asks me anything like technical, I will share everything I'm allowed to share. Right? I am sometimes tied by NDAs, friendias. Sometimes
I love friendias. That's good.
And probably like the only one that I am not technically tied to, but choose to tie to is kind of like this used to exist in the smaller community stuff, which is like knowing the right person to know the right thing. And it's not necessarily people hiding it from you, but it's like you said, how back in the day, people have to used to dig for information, find it out. Right. It's more along those lines where like, I know of several Discord groups. I'm one of them where people will post certain links to certain vintage boards that go for discount. And it's basically like, hey, keep it in the server. We have bots who can cull information to find cheap orange Alps, cheap brown Alps, cheap blue Alps, cheap Space Invaders, cheap Beamers. But you got to know about the know to be in the know, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of like one of those things where, okay, they asked me not to share that. I'm not going to share all these wonderful posts because they asked me, and the people have actually worked hard to establish a system for this, as well as a system to vet, oh, I would like this for cheap. No one bid on it. And everyone would like, okay, that's yours. You get it for cheap instead of, us vent people fighting over this item.
Same board.
So yeah, basically it is collusion. If you're wondering, it is essentially collusion. But if you know the right people and people know of you as a good person, it's really easy to get into these collusions.
So there's in chat, there's a discussion about like where should new people go, and I do want to clarify something. When I said we were part of the problem as like streamers and like people watching content, I do think that is a fantastic place for people to go who are new. But I think it's just like anything when we were talking about people selling boards for lots of money. It's about motive and the mindset going into it. When we're talking about, and Huey's talking about people being dumb, it's the way that they're taking that information, right? Like the information that is in streams, that people are putting in YouTube videos or even online, it is good, solid information and a great place to start. But it's also understanding that is a baseline, and there is a sense of you do have to figure some things out for yourself. Goes back to why we talked about how hot swap is so important and is super recommended for someone who's new in the hobby, because they do need to try out different switches and develop their own idea of what they like and what they think. Like it's like a whole process, right? You can't just like get everything from one place. And what we're talking about is people who don't understand that process and just are like trying to be information bots and just like, I hear this, I tell everyone this now as if it's gospel.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm going to run with that forever.
Yeah.
I think Dotnik has said the best thing in this, and this is just probably for most hobbies, but like especially this one. If you're not a jerk, you'll end up where you want. If you're just a nice person who talks and respects people's opinions and is just a respectful person, like I'll bring up Keeb Noob, who's our moderator. She's someone that came in last April, just chatted a bunch. We were hanging out.
Welcome to the hobby.
Came in. We were chatting up one day, and then we talk a few times. And hey, maybe you play this game. Let's play this game. Now she's a moderator. Like it's a slow, but you're not if you just get in the hobby and you're like, man, I'd love to get into some of these, maybe like a private buyer, maybe I'd like to get to know more, whatever. Just be nice and reach out a hand, because if someone's just talking in our Discord or in someone else's Discord just a couple times, people remember names. People remember who people are. Eric and I spent months in Discords trying to get our names in where when we launched Mechs on Deck, people knew who we were before Mechs on Deck was even a thing. It was, oh, Chewy and Osiris. Like, I know those guys from the Discords that they talk in. And we got to where we wanted to be just by not going around being an asshole to people and expecting things from people. So,
yeah.
Good Dotnik, chef kiss.
So I think, yeah, for people starting out or people want to learn more, honestly, I would say watch and read anything and everything you want as long as you have the right mindset to learn. Not everything is truth. Everything needs to be formed by you researching and doing your own opinion based off several. Like, if you want to go by, oh, this streamer said this, well, good. What did this other streamer say about that? How about this other streamer? How about this article someone wrote? How about this, and this? And through all the information, then form something, because that's going to be the most accurate way for you to form actually a good cohesive opinion, other than taking one person's shit as gospel. No matter who it is, like, even if it's me, even if you watch my stuff, I expect you also watch other people's stuff to form a full opinion on everything, because that's how you should learn. That's how people should learn, at least. And I think if you do that and be nice, be respectful, most anyone will be nice and respectful back. And try to help you. I mean, people message me every now and then with questions on the, and I'll just, hey, I'm at work, but this or this. And I chat with random people sometimes. They'll just message me asking a question, and as long as they're nice and respectful and understand that I'll get back to you eventually. Yeah, I talked to a ton of people like that. Yeah. Where if you want to know something, you just find an ask. Worst case scenario, someone says no, they're busy, which is fine. You can ask someone else. There are over 800,000 people in this hobby. I'm sure there's a decent group of people you can easily make friends with.
Dude, you think we'll hit the milli this year on RMK?
I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to the growth rate, so maybe not. I don't know if we've plateaued yet. Have we plateaued? Does anyone know?
We could be heading there, but I don't. If we do, it's because of how long things are taking, not because of like other external factors. I think just ship times are just ridiculous. So, well, guys, we don't. I wish we're gonna have to have you back on, because it's already 10 o'clock.
What happened?
And we're gonna have to have you back on soon, because I feel like there's a lot we're leaving on the table, and I would love to be able to chat all night. But work.
Yeah.
Work. Being adults.
The thing we do between our hobbies.
So, Eric, what are you doing this weekend?
So on Saturday, I'm building a clue board, a blast from the past. Yeah, I've never built one, and it, like said, it's an old board. It's a classic in the hobby. I feel like at this point, I'm gonna go out on a limb and be fairly confident in saying that, just like a lot of things that we've talked about in this stream, you probably don't know what a clue board is, or maybe you've seen it but you've never seen one be built, because I can't remember the last time I saw a streamer build a clue board.
I can. It was Huey, and it was like 2 years ago.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure I was the most recent one of any streamer to build a clue board, and that was like 2 years ago.
So yeah, building a clue board, and I'm excited because it's a it's an old school board. They are known to have some little issues and be a little rough around the edges. But yeah, it's a cool board. So coming out noon on Saturday.
There it is. And next week we have Switch Doctor AU joining us on Tuesday. The normal Mechs on Deck episode will be on Wednesday. That will be the final week of Keyboard of the Week. So if you want to post for Marquee May, remember, just look at the pictures. You write us something that you would, the rules are you have to write us something on your keyboard. The words that you use have to be mounted on the keyboard, and you have to be able to say it in our Twitch chat without getting banned. And please don't attack other people that are not Eric and myself. Go to our Discord, KOTW, and post those pictures, and you get the chance to be in the calendar for the month of May. Who are we raiding? We've gotten 2 raids, so thank you. Quick shout out to Lightning and Dutchmaster. Thank you for the raids.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. What's while Chewy looks for someone to raid, what's coming up next for you, Mr. Man of Interest? Is your hiatus coming to an end?
Yeah, the hiatus is coming to an end. I mean, in terms of like my first my non-keyboard stuff. I mean, weekend plans. I got a nice, beautiful, like 7 to 8 hour motorcycle ride on Saturday. I'm leaving at like 8 a.m. My friend and I are just gonna go around the mountains in Central California, which will be fun. On Sunday, I have a tabletop RPG group that I host that I'm actually working on actual like video content for. So I'm also actually doing non-keyboard content, which is something new, and I probably won't push that anywhere because it's just not keyboard related. But in terms of
feel free, man. We have some very close friends that do D&D streams.
it's tabletop for questioning. It is a tabletop RPG. It's not D&D. I've DM'd D&D for over 10 years. I'm not doing more D&D unless someone else wants to be my DM. But it's going to be a play-by-play, like a video cast. People who watched my stream before know I have my overhead camera, so I got my grid actually set up. Let's see if I can just real quick. Anything valuable that I'm going to share that will expose who I am, which is Huey. There you go. So as you can see under my mess, I have my grid for all the minis and everything. So I'm actually like actually record and audio and video for all my players and I, and we kind of just do our thing on the grid. So it's like a play-by-play kind of podcast. We're not doing D&D. The system we're doing is called Age of Sigmar Soulbound, relatively new system. Its 1 year anniversary was 2 weeks ago actually, so it's super brand new. So I've been doing that as like alternative content aside from keyboards, but for keyboard content, streaming and like normal video content releases will resume regular schedule on Monday-ish. There will be a review out later this week. It's just like an old catch-up review from one I should have released 2 months ago on the Conundrum. And then either on Sunday or Tuesday, I'll have another review for a split keyboard. Wonder what that is. But yeah, other than that, like things like This Week in Keyboards will return, but it will be modified. Streams like the Cool Board, Key Quiz, and other shows will resume. I'll need to talk with Diego and Hugo how they feel about keyboards tonight, because if I understand they're super busy now, especially with Diego trying to work on that partnership. I might just have to take the reins and just be all hands with keyboards tonight, which is fine too. Because I know they do great stuff on their streams. You guys also, but if you guys anyone wants to catch up on stuff when I come back, youtube.com/ManOfInterests, twitch.tv/ManOfInterests. Yeah, that's just that's where it is. You guys can follow me there. I have a Discord that you can find if you're smart. You guys are in a million Discords already, so I'm not gonna post a link to my Discord. If you want to join my Discord, find it. Just find it.
There it is.
You guys are people who are in this chat watching are probably already in a dozen keyboard Discords, right?
I left a few recently. I was like, I feel bad.
Literally, just find it. If you want to be a part of it, just find it, because it's not going to matter anyways, right?
So I found someone named Axe David 201 building a keyboard. Doesn't have a lot of people talking in chat, so let's change that. Let's change that. Looks like the title is just a bunch of letters, which we all do that, right? We just slash our keyboards.
Maybe he was just using the title as a typing test to make sure his keys worked.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Let's get this raid going on then.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we'll be closing up tonight, and I will be back on Saturday building that clue board. Again, that's going to be happening at 12 noon Central Time, and we'll see you all then, and then come back next week. We switch Dr. AU on Tuesday, and then Wednesday with the regular stream. Bye now.